Good afternoon to all the EAPCET aspirants. So, we are in our last session where we are going to finish off our 11th text completely with objective practice. Today we will finish off the ecological adaptations. Previously we looked into ecological succession and ecological services, right ma? So, today we are going to finish off ecological adaptations, and in our next session we will have a strong EAPCET question practice on ecological adaptations chapter and biomolecules. With that, 11th text will be completed totally, after which we will move on to 12th botany. Okay. So, now let's get started with the concept. First it is about biomes. So, how biomes are formed? Fine, right? What is the level of hierarchy? Biome is the topmost domain in the ecological hierarchy, fine, right, which starts from organism. Group of organisms living in a particular place will form out what? Population. So, group of organisms form out in a particular place will living in a particular place will form out population. Different populations coexisting gives you community, right ma? Different communities will form biospheres. Biospheres turn up to form largest biome. So, biome is the topmost hierarchy in the ecology. So, here major biomes of India include what? Major biomes of India. Major biomes of India include tropical rainforest, deciduous forest, desert and seed coast, which is giving in the beginning of your text itself. So, here how they are formed? Biomes are formed usually due to what? Annual variations, temperature and precipitation. Based on these climatic variations, the biomes will be formed, like tropical rainforests, deciduous forests, deserts and sea coasts. Fine, right ma? So, now if you see, what are the factors which are majorly responsible for biome formation? What are the factors? Okay. So, here we go. First, rotation of earth around the sun. Both rotation and revolution of earth around the axis of sun is one of the major factor for biome formation. Next, tilt of earth's axis. Then most importantly, seasonal variations in the temperature intensity and duration. Okay. Seasonal variations will give out what? Temperature variation, and intensity of temperature will be changed. Next, annual variations will be, for example, precipitation, rain and snow. Fine, right. Next, plant communities and ecological adaptations. Organisms will survive environmental extremes through different adaptations. Okay, environmental extremes can be survived through different adaptations. The adaptations can be morphological adaptations, physiological adaptations and behavioral adaptations. Adaptation is defined as any structural, physiological or behavior attribute that enables an organism to survive, reproduce in its habitat. Fine, right? That is addressed as adaptation. What is an adaptation usually? How is it defined? Any structural, physiological or behavioral change or attribute which enables the organism to survive and reproduce in any habitat is addressed as adaptation. Adaptations evolves over long periods and they are genetically fixed. Okay. Adaptations are genetically fixed, which is very important statement ma. We can expect in statement based questions. Are adaptations genetically fixed? Yes. They are processed over long periods of time and they are genetically fixed. We have three types of adaptations: morphological, physiological and behavioral. Now, classification of plants based on the water availability to them, that is done by Eugen Warming, which is important. Okay. Eugen Warming. So, plants are classified into three ecological groups, which is based on their relation to water. First is hydrophytes, plants which are in water habitats. Next is mesophytes, plants with moderate water conditions. Next, xerophytes, plants with dry habitats. Fine, right? And then hydrophytes, if you see, plants growing in water or wet places, these are known as hydrophytes. They are classified into 5 major categories. First, what are those 5 categories that we see? free floating hydrophytes, rooted floating hydrophytes, submerged floating, rooted submerged and rooted emerged hydrophytes. These are 5 types: free floating, rooted with floating leaves, submerged hydrophytes, submerged rooted and amphibious plants. These are 5 types of hydrophytes. What is most important is each type of hydrophyte you have to mention out the examples properly. Free floating hydrophytes where roots are absent, they float freely on the water surface. Examples include Pistia, Lemma, Wolffia and Ecornia. Fine, right? And rooted hydrophytes with floating leaves. Roots fixed in mud, leaves float on the surface. Examples include Nymphia and Victoria. These are the examples of what? Rooted hydrophytes with floating leaves. Next, submerged suspended hydrophytes. There is no contact with soil. It is completely submerged. Examples Hydrilla and Utricularia. Submerged rooted hydrophytes. The examples include Vallisneria. The roots are completely fixed in soil and entire plant is submerged. Okay. And then amphibious plant. They live partly on water and partly on land. Most importantly, examples you can take as mosses. Here Typha, Limnophilia and Ranunculus. Fine, right? So here you see what are the 5 types of hydrophytes, ma? First is free floating, second is rooted hydrophytes with floating leaves, submerged suspended, submerged rooted and amphibious plants. What is most important over here is you have to highlight the examples exactly accurately. Okay. If you are mentioning this in the tabulated form also, that is fine. Okay. Make a table and give out 5 lists and 1 column for the examples, and likewise you can revise easily. Fine, right? Which will ease your revision process. So this is about hydrophytes. Now what is the ecological adaptations? We have to learn both about morphological adaptations and ecological adaptations. I hope you have got these terms properly, right? Free floating hydrophytes, which means roots are totally absent here, they will float freely on the water surface. Rooted hydrophytes with floating leaves, roots are fixed in muds, they will have long stems and the leaves will float on the surface of water. Submerged suspended, they do not have any contact with the soil and they are not over the surface of water also, they are submerged. Okay. Submerged and suspended in the water body. And submerged rooted hydrophytes. Here roots are completely fixed in the soil, entire plant is submerged. Example you can take is Vallisneria. Amphibious plants which live partly in water and partly on land. Example is Typha, Limnophilia and Ranunculus. Like that you have to remember. Fine, right? Now we move on to ecological adaptations of hydrophytes. First we will look into the morphological adaptations. Morphological adaptations. Yeah. Roots are poorly developed or absent in the hydrophytes, that we know. Root caps are absent. Okay. And root is present, which is either fibrous or adventitious, it is not taproot system. Okay. And then stem is long, slender and flexible. Stem is long, slender and flexible, especially in submerged floating hydrophytes, right? Stem is long and flexible. And then if you see, leaves are thin, ribbon shaped and they are finely dissected submerged leaves, you can see, broad and flat with waxy upper surface which is coated by cutin. Fine, right? So these will be morphological adaptations of root, stem and leaves. Now we will move on to anatomical adaptations. Anatomical adaptations, you see, cuticle is totally absent in the submerged plants, epidermis is thin walled and it has chloroplasts in it, which is addressed as chlorenchyma. Mechanical tissues are poorly developed here. Presence of aerenchyma is there for the purpose of buoyancy and gaseous exchange. Xylem is poorly developed. Stomata is completely absent in the submerged leaves. They are present on the upper surface, which is epistomatous. Remember these 2 points. Stomata present on the upper surface of the floating leaves in hydrophytes, which is epistomatous in hydrophytes, and hypostomatous in xerophytes. Remember that. It is epistomatous in hydrophytes and hypostomatous in xerophytes. Next is mesophytes. Fine, right? Mesophytes will grow through plants growing under moderate water conditions are mesophytes. Water and air spaces in soil are completely balanced. There is no special adaptation over here, and most of the crop plants here are mesophytes only. Examples, if you see, wheat, rice, barley, peas, sugarcane and grassland. These are the examples of mesophytes. Clear, right, ma? And then if you see xerophytes. Xerophytes, plants growing in water deficient habitats are xerophytes. They have excessive water loss, and we have 3 types of xerophytes based on their lifespan and based on their storage tissues. One is ephemerals. Okay, ephemerals are also addressed as drought escapers. They are also addressed as what, ma? Drought escapers. Fine, right? Which will complete their entire life cycle in a short period. Example is tribulus. Okay. Next is succulents. Fine, right? Succulents which are drought avoiders. Succulents are drought avoiders which will store water in stem, leaf or root. Examples include opentia, aloe vera and asparagus. Next is non-succulents. Fine, right? Non-succulents which are drought tolerants. Drought tolerance, which are perennial plants. They will withstand prolonged drought conditions. Examples include casuarina, nerium and calotropis. These are the examples: casuarina, nerium and calotropis. Now, what are the ecological adaptations, both morphological and anatomical adaptations of xerophytes? So, here we go with morphological and anatomical adaptations of xerophytes. Fine, right? Morphological adaptations: roots are long and extensively branched, root hairs are well developed, stem is woody, hard, often covered with thick bark. Leaves, if you see, they are reduced, small, scale like, and they are modified into spines. Fine, right? Next is anatomical adaptations. Epidermis is having thick cuticle, it is multi-layered. Here there is a presence of sunken stomata. Okay, sunken stomata is there, and epidermis is on the lower surface to prevent the process of transpiration. Here you will address, if the epidermis is on the lower surface, that is on the abaxial epidermis. Abaxial epidermis, it is addressed as hypostomatous condition. Abaxial epidermis, which is hypostomatous condition. Mechanical and vascular tissue is well developed. Fine, right? So, these are morphological and anatomical adaptations. Next, most important points. Most important points, like if you see, we have just a second. Yeah. 1. CAM pathway is common in xerophytes and succulents, which is crustacean acid metabolism pathway, okay, where we learn it in plant physiology. We can get a connected question. Remember that statement carefully, okay, which is an adaptation for maximum fixation of carbon dioxide, okay. And here in CAMP pathway, what type of stomata will be there? Scotoactive stomata. Anyhow, hypostomatous condition is clear to you. Scotoactive stomata also you keep it in your mind, ma, where the stomata open during night and close during daytime. Scotoactive stomata. Stomata opens during night time and closes during daytime. Next is parenchyma, is diagnostic of hydrophytes, and then sunken stomata for xerophytes, epistomatus which is seen in floating hydrophytes. Poor xylem development is observed in hydrophytes. Maximum transpiration control is observed in xerophytes. Fine, right? Mesophytes will lack special adaptations. Fine. Opentia leaves are modified to spines. Opentia leaves are modified to spines. Hydrilla is submerged, suspended hydrophyte. Vallisneria is submerged rooted hydrophyte. These are examples. Fine, right? So, these are the most important key takeaways that you can see from the ecological adaptations and connecting links with plant physiology. Fine, right? This is the complete details on ecological adaptation, succession and services is dealt in previous session. So, with this we have completed the 11th text of botany. From our next class we are going to start with 12th. Okay. We will first begin it with plant physiology only. Okay. So, till here I hope everything is clear to you, right. So, that is all for today's session. Thank you.